meeting to order at 7 o'clock. And we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So Andrea did reach out to me. She's unable to be here tonight, so I will be chairing the meeting. So let's start with the approval of the agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second? Josh, thank you. Any additions or deletions from the agenda?
One.
Okay.
Stan had asked if we add bank resolution on there,
Okay.
and if we can put that after adult meal pricing, he can just do those 3 in a row.
Okay. So, perfect. All right.
I see Stan on the screen, even though we can look and see him over there
Probably
too,
his office,
probably.
too.
Yep.
Public input and announcements. Do we have anybody tonight scheduled to speak?
We have to approve that, the agenda?
Do we have to approve the
We have
agenda
to
change
vote-
or no?
We have to vote?
Yeah, adopt, I would vote to
Okay.
approve the
Anyone
agenda.
like motion to make the change? All right. A
So
second?
all those in favor too?
Okay.
Oh, wait, do we have to approve the change or move to accept it with the change?
Yeah, I think move to accept with the
Okay.
change is reasonable.
All right. So we'll move to make the, to, to accept the change.
So moved.
All right.
Sorry, yeah.
Perfect. All in favor?
I see
Is
a yes
unanimous.
from Bruce and
Yep.
a hand up
All
from
right, perfect.
Adrian.
All right. So now we're on to public input and announcements.
None that I'm aware of. We haven't heard from anybody.
Okay. And so obviously there'll be no discussion of the public comments. So we'll move on to the approval of the minutes from July 20th. Can I get a motion? All right, and a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Was I at that meeting? I'm sorry, I don't have.
I wasn't at the meeting either, so I'm not sure.
Was I virtually there? Thank you. Okay.
Adrian has raised her hand.
No, it was voting yes.
Oh, sorry. All right. So all in favor? It is unanimous. Student representative updates.
No updates at this time.
Okay. Cruising right along here. Comprehensive survey update.
Yeah, so I had sent the board a table showing 2 options. We had actually looked at 3. Jody had been working with the community engagement group and had run 3 surveys past them. One survey, when we started exploring it, just didn't seem to have much to it. But then the other 2 vendors seemed fairly comparable. So I sent along a little table comparing those 2 vendors. I've reached out to some union folks to get their opinions on those 2 vendors as well. So I'm curious if there's any discussion. This is not something where I need approval. It's not an amount of money that would trigger that. It's something we have budgeted. We budget it in our ESSER grant. So we can cover it fine, but this is a conversation that we've had at the board level several times about giving a survey like this, so I thought it was relevant to at least have the discussion and get some feedback. So,
In that table, there wasn't a price for
Yes.
the tripod? Is there?
I had
One there
to,
was, and one that just says annual.
I got that yesterday, because I was working with folks and I had to go through about 3 different people, and without coloring your perception too much, I didn't like the hoops I had to jump through to actually get somebody to give me a quote there. It ended up being $30,000 too. So for 2 things that are pretty comparable, I hope that didn't just completely sway your opinion, but I'm curious what folks thought of those 2 options.
The only thing that I was wondering,
Yep.
because part of the, down there in the data set, is that implying that the one on the left only has done the survey one time?
Oh,
And
no,
like the other
good
one
question,
is
very good question.
multiple times?
So when they do work to statistical work to figure out if it's valid and reliable, they're going to do a study. So that was the study year. So they've given this survey for many years to many districts across the country. Yeah. But the study that was done showing that it was structurally valid and had really good validity and reliability was that year. Great question. Great question. Nick?
The one thing I would ask, like other tests and measurement
Yep.
points, what's the feedback loop on this? I know some things
Yep.
we get fast and
Yep.
some things take forever.
Yep. This is actually pretty fast. If we give it in the fall, we'll have data back as soon as people are putting it in.
For both?
Both of them have a dashboard. The third one that I'm not showing you didn't. The third one, we'd have to wait until they compiled stuff and gave it to us. These two, we would see it as it's coming in. So we could say, gosh, the response rate's really low, let's give it a few days. Oh, response rate's reasonable, let's send one more reminder. Okay, now we're cutting it off because we actually have a good response rate, let's look at our data. And let's say it's been a month. So actually, we're not waiting 6 months to do anything with this data. So can we know some things in the fall that give us a really good place to meet with administrators, set goals for buildings, try to do that work during the year, and then check back in and see if we've improved our data? Absolutely. Nice thing about both of these are going to let you track whether you're making progress or not pretty darn easily. You don't have to do the math yourselves or throw together charts or graphs. It's done for you, which is really nice. That year-to-year improvement and seeing, I mean, some of the stuff you get to see is pretty incredible. You know, of all these survey items, they're broken out into categories. So you can see, is there improvement in a category? Then you can see in that category, is there improvement on a specific item or two? Or is it improvement on the whole category? So you can get some, I think, really actionable feedback. Both of these surveys also give you, that's the last item there, action planning. Both have things that line up with the results. So you could say, oh, we're doing poorly in this area. What are some recommended actions? Yeah, there's no magic bullet that's going to fix things, but if we have a menu of 5 things, we could probably find one that seems reasonable to try. So I think that actionable piece is useful. We don't just get the data, we get some recommendations for things we can do. Good question. Any other thoughts, questions? Were you leaning one way or the other, or do both seem reasonable?
I mean, in the chart, I mean, the one on the left, there's more checkbox, like, you know, in
Yeah,
the what we're
yeah.
actually surveying,
Yeah.
there's more. So that would imply that that we'd get more data. I think part of the other part of it, and, is I would also be interested in knowing, like, not just, because people answer surveys,
Yep.
How they answer surveys.
Yeah,
Making
yeah.
sure that part of it is, through the survey process, actually seeing, like, preferred preferences, so, like, actual actions that people have taken. So, like, if there are people leaving the school, what school did they go to? If there are saying they're, doing, we're not doing well in something, is there a way to say, what have you done?
Yeah,
to
we
do
can.
something like that, just to make sure that.
I think with both of these, they're customizable, so we can add questions, which I think is useful. So you could have a question about how satisfied are you with academics at your school, and it will all be broken out by school. We could add a follow-up question that's just a paragraph that says, why do you feel that way?
Yeah.
And they'll actually do some analysis on those responses. So instead of us combing through 3,000 responses, they'll say, hey, 500 people mentioned accountability, for example, or 200 people mentioned clarity or something like that. So we have the ability to try and capture some of that. This might get at what you're saying too, Josh, I wonder. This isn't the only thing we'll do to engage people.
Yeah.
This is one strategy. When we start talking about strategic planning, I don't want strategic planning to be based on a survey that people do or don't take. I want strategic planning to have more FaceTime with people in our community, and not the iPhone FaceTime. Get in a room and run some focus groups, have conversations. So I think this is one tool in our toolkit to try and engage. if that makes sense. Good question, good question.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
So do you need anything from us?
Don't need action, I was just
Okay.
curious if folks were leaning one way or the other. I really think cost is gonna be the factor,
Yeah.
but all the feedback that I've gotten so far and where we were leaning was towards Panorama anyway, so
I
that
would agree with that statement, so.
worked
yeah.
out reasonably, so,
Okay, perfect.
thank you.
All right, so moving on, we are now to school safety.
Where do you want us? Do you want us to stay seated? Do you want us to stand?
What works best for the camera?
We're good?
We're good? Okay, perfect.
All right? Yeah.
All right. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Joe Hoffman. Been in law enforcement for the past 35 years. Started my career in '87 as a Vermont State Trooper, stationed down in Shasbury. After 17 years, I came up here as a trooper for 4 years and did the SRO position behind Chuck Cacciatore. They pulled me out after that, and 2010 I retired, and the next day I joined the Sheriff's Department, and they assigned me to the SRO position here. So I've been fortunate to, and I believe Mr. Hill has signed the contract with the Sheriff's Department, so.
We are doing that tonight.
Oh, okay, so I've been here 12 years. Hopefully I'll be making my 13th. But being here, it's been just a great experience. You get to know the kids and do different things, and again, get to know the kids. Some of them, they come with some baggage, but you try to help them through that, through the troubles, and so they don't become upset and riot in school or just behavior issues. My position here, I've been moved around. My office is now in the main office, and we now have some very nice security cameras that were updated. Thank you for approving that, Mr. Hill. Obviously, it'd be nice to have more, but it all boils down to money. I think one of the biggest things that happened here was I was here the night in 2018 when the Jack Sawyer incident came to light, because the Fairhaven girls were here playing basketball and the Fairhaven boys were in Otter Valley. When I found out, because of the fact that they had closed the Fairhaven school, they did not want the players to go back to the school, and whatever they had there, obviously they would leave there and they could get it in the morning. So we just had to go around and inform the coach and parents and students that, hey, I'm sorry, but you need to go home with your, it's kind of like, we don't really want to tell you why, but you have to go home with your parents. And working with state police and the staff and our sheriff's department, it all came together very nicely. I don't know if anybody in the stands was really aware that what was going on until they came out, because there was obviously cruisers and troopers and other law enforcement here. Then of course it all came to light the next day. I think, again, it was a good thing that you folks, again, I don't really know you, but I hope you support the SRO position. It's a good thing to have. I know a lot of people say, oh, you meet other troopers and stuff like that, and so, what did you do to become an SRO? And I said, I did nothing. I volunteered for it because that's what I wanted to do. And they, other agencies think of it as a bad thing, and I don't. I think it's a big help. Again, work closely with Ms. Ruck, and we student issues and different things like that we discussed back and forth. Once in a while, I get bulletins in that as simple as maybe there's a road closure because of either a washout or they're doing some construction. They'll call me from the office, and there was one time they did a high-speed chase up on 7, and it was a burglary subject, and he took lake bail and came this way. So they just called me and just kind of sort of put it out there in an email. Teachers, don't go outside, and it's just very calm. Just keep doing your classroom work, and we'll have everything. And I just stayed outside until they apprehended the guy, and then it was like business as usual. So I think in a couple incidents and stuff like that, again, I felt good to be here, and again, working well with the staff. It really, really goes hand in hand. I've been to the national SRO training. There's a basic and an advanced. I've been to both of those. There used to be, before COVID, a governor's safety conference. They're bringing it back this year. It's November 2nd. And on the 25th, we're going to brief the staff in kind of like a Alice, well, it's Run, Hide, Fight. It's kind of like the new program that's coming around, that how teachers and students are supposed to react if ever we have an incident here. And we'll go through that, and I think it's kind of Ms. Rock set it up, it's kind of like a little round robin type thing where different groups come in at different times, so you don't have just one big group covering that stuff. It's a really dark subject, but obviously everybody has heard in the news that it's unfortunate that we have to cover that stuff. Back in the day, you just didn't, and now obviously throughout the nation, it's become a huge problem. Let's see, the bulletins covered. Me being here, love it here. It's
And,
Mountain
and
Road.
Joe is one of two people that I have seen do dishes in the cafeteria just to help out.
Yep.
Joe and Mike Bird. And that was early on in my career here, and you go, gosh, those are two people who care about this place and these people.
Yep, and I'm also one of the bus drivers. Yeah, kind of a funny thing, one of the kids, I was filling in, and one of the kids got on the bus and went home and told his mom, he goes, Mom? She's like, no, bus drivers don't carry guns, whatever. So this is when Steve Fowler was here,
Yep.
and he gets the phone call, and he's like, bus driver with a gun, he says. Oh, we don't have any bus drivers with a gun. He goes, well, he said there was a guy, he had a golf shirt on and had this black gun on his side. And he goes, oh yeah, he says, Joe had to fill, he goes, that's our resource officer. He had to fill in for one of the guys. He goes, yeah, he said, but he's okay. So, I'm sorry, it's just one of those funny stories that, comes with the job. So, any questions that I can field?
Have any questions?
Sure.
You were just talking about VITE, did I hear that right?
VITE?
It was similar to Alice training?
Oh, the run, fight, hide?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's more to the fact of, again, run is if, say the incident is happening up in the front office.
Right.
And I hate to say it, but most likely it's gonna happen in the front office because I'm the main target, because I'm pretty much, well, hopefully the only one that has the gun in school. And that I will be, like I said, I will be the one target. And so probably that's where it's gonna be. So if there was a classroom here and we get that information out through our PA system, because it's, you alert people to what's going on. Teachers and students can bail out the window through our protocol. They know, our procedure, they know that they need to weave their way through and go to our rendezvous spot and stuff like that. Height is obviously height, and fight. It obviously is a little different in the high school than it is the elementary. So you have to kind of curtail that a little bit because, again, the fight part probably isn't going to really work that well with the great elementary schools. So the upper schools, I think some of them, it's one of those things that, again, push comes to shove, man, you got to protect yourself and protect the kids.
And when we run teachers through Joe's session on our opening day, we've organized the teachers and the staff by grade level so that he can have different conversations with
Yep.
high school teachers as opposed to pre-K teachers.
Sure.
Because it is very different and differentiated.
Yeah. And I need to compliment you too, as well, because I as a person who at one time never wanted an SRO in my school when I was here, but then I went to a training and found out what a huge help having an SRO is. So I thank you for that, because I know what you do.
Thank you.
And you'd have my support forever.
Thank you. I really do appreciate that, because we have had that conversation before. And I thank you for being very upfront about it because of the fact that, yeah, when Trooper Cacciatore was here in 2000, it's like, what do you need an officer in school for? Is the school that bad? And I say, and I say, no, the school's that good that I'm there because of the fact that I'm a resource. Yes, if something bad happens, I'm here to hopefully, react and help out or do whatever I gotta do. But I'm also here to hopefully prevent the buildup of that. If somebody is getting bullied, somebody's getting whatever, I tell them my office door is always open. I know it's tough because I'm probably not one of the most approachable people when kids are in trouble because or when they have troubles, because it's kind of like, oh, I got to be careful what I say, because if I say something that mandated reporter, or he's got to do this, then I'm going to get in trouble. But I try to get them in and just say, hey, look, if you start to go down that road, I'm going to stop. Because of the fact that I will remind you I'm a mandated reporter, and then I will get Ms. Rupp or Ms. Thompson, and we'll, obviously, I won't leave them hanging. And actually, again, just one of the, I'm sorry to take up your time, but just another quick story. We had a student that was here, and yeah, you're not supposed to be on your cell phone, and she was following somebody on one of the social medias, and he talked about hurting himself. And it was at another school district, and so she comes to me and she says, Deputy Harmon, she goes, I think this is happening right now. So I get, and it's kind of like, okay, well, I'll take it serious and go. And I called the chief. It was happening to be up in Brandon, Chief Warfel, and he's like, oh my gosh. He goes, yeah. He goes, I said, look, the student just doesn't come out of the blue and make these stories up. And I've seen the text. It looks like it's happening, but please just go check it out. And he went and checked it out. Or he called the parents, and the parents were like, oh, yeah, that was a weekend thing. We already took care of it, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, it's kind of like, I said, Chief, I think it's happening right now. So you got to go. He goes, all right. He says, I'll go. And he got there, and the father had just maybe 2-3 minutes before him would have taken a very, very deadly turn for the worse, because of the fact that it was happening right then and there. And so, praise the student for breaking protocol and getting into her cell phone. But again, working, because I knew Chief Warfel, and just the timing was great. It just, and everything worked out for the best. So again, I'm happy to be here. I hope you're happy with my services. Door's always open. Stop in.
Adrian, you got your hand
Yeah,
up?
Adrian had something.
I did. I just wanted to tell Joe that I totally appreciate him. He's been here for a long time. My kids all had met him, well, maybe not the oldest, and they respected him. And that says a lot for an adult in a school who isn't always saying the popular thing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Any further questions?
Yes.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And so I'm going to just add a little more context to the school side of the work that Joe and I do together. We've been working together for 9 years of home calls and all kinds of funness. Hooray! So Joe and
That's
I
not in the
work-
contract, Joe. I
No,
didn't
I
see
know.
that written in, so.
Well, every time she
I've
hurts
caused a couple of his gray hairs.
my feeling, I fill out a first report of injuries.
Yeah.
So Joe and I work together really closely on the school safety pieces because it does take careful communication of making sure that we're following the privacy boundaries of school and the police, but we're also communicating as frequently as we possibly can to make sure that we are liaisoning and keeping each other apprised of what could be happening. So some of the things that we have planned for this year, over the summer, all of the principals updated the emergency operations plans for their districts. That is a statewide template. It's about 30 pages for each school of a document. So it led to some really great meetings and questions as people who are new to their buildings started going through all of the detail work. So I'm really happy that we're going to start the year with all of those plans updated, with a copy over to Joe, with a copy over to Amy Ridlin, our head nurse, so that everyone could be on the same page. We also, each principal is going to invite myself, Joe, and Amy to their building in September to have a safety meeting, just to make sure that everyone is feeling really confident and on the same page. We'll just do a walk around the school, look for anything that we might want to make note of, and just make sure that we feel really confident that we're keeping our kids as safe as we possibly can. Our threat assessment procedures, I did want to bring that up. So if any person in our entire community has a concern about a potential threat, anybody can always let any single adult who works in our district know. If there is a concern, then that goes to me. And we do have an entire written procedure. If the board ever wants to see that, we're happy to share it. Kaylin and I have worked together on those so that there's multiple other people trained. We use the Virginia threat assessment model to make sure that we are using a nationally normed model for making those school-based threat assessments. And Joe and I communicate as much as we possibly and are legally allowed to make sure that we are keeping everybody safe if we do have to do those. We do have to do those. So it is a part of the job. Obviously, nothing has ever happened. And it is very likely nothing will ever happen, but we take every single potential threat very seriously and we follow a very clear protocol. In August, Joe mentioned that on our opening day, we are really going to focus a lot of our day on safety. You know, it's a bummer thing to start with, but we just want to start the year really making sure that we're ready to go, and that all of our thinking is tight. So we're going to start with a really nice meeting in the morning, and then we are going to run staff in grade level groups through 4 different sessions. So they'll get EpiPen and Narcan training, the Run, Hide, Fight training differentiated by grade level with Joe, Stop the Bleed training with our school nurses, and then bullying, harassment, threat assessment, and self-harm assessment, just what you should do to report those things with me. And then in the afternoon, we're going to have a nice picnic and some community fun to come back up and get ready for the year. But all of that is planned, and I can answer any question that is on the school side of these, the school safety pieces.
And I'll just throw one thing in real fast. I think it's important that we're looking at this from multiple angles. We're not just doing Ellis training, we're done. We're looking at the mental health piece. We're looking at what do you do when it happens. We're looking at how do you prevent it? How do you actually see the threats? Because while we have not had anything happen, that's not to say we have not had threats. It's not that all the threat assessments were clear and life was good. If we catch them early and we deal with them appropriately, and we have a strong team doing that work on the front end. So I think a more comprehensive approach than just lock the doors better.
And when we do have one of those, we work really closely with the family. We work to give that student everything that they need to be healthy. You know, we try to
Well,
make sure.
to access education, because that's why we're here. Crazy that we have to be doing all this work, but it's to get that child to access education, not to get them out of here.
And any other student who's affected.
Yeah.
We work long-term to make sure those students feel comfortable in our schools. It's a key piece of doing this work correctly.
Do the kids ever have to do any of drills, like a fire drill equivalent?
Yes. So we do practice a clear the halls and a lockdown drill. Depending on the school, the situation, sometimes evacuation drills are practiced as well.
Because my only concern with that is that, like, there are lots of reports now of way more trauma being caused by these drills than, you know, it's not a fire drill. It's not the same thing. And so I hope that that is being mindful of, like, how those drills are being done.
We don't have kids picking things up and throwing them and like live acting things.
Yeah.
I know districts, some places have done that, like we'll pretend there's an intruder and you live act what you would do. Oh, we don't do that.
We don't. The biggest we do is a lockdown of like, we're all gonna hide. And there is a variety of responses that we use to try to keep that positive. So, you know, when I was up at Shrewsbury as principal, sometimes we'd have, there's a moose on the loose drills, you know, just so that we could still practice, but ideally not enact further trauma. We still, though, want kids to take it really seriously, and there is a piece of practice that does lend to safety. The updated guidance from Dan French says that we can replace some drills with instructional drills. And so that means explaining, if you hear this is what we should do and this is why. And so as we move forward in the year and discuss school safety more as a leadership team, we'll kind of be having those conversations.
And we actually had a pass for the last, I think, 2 years where we did not do those drills because of COVID, if that makes
Because we
sense.
couldn't push everyone in a
Yeah.
corner together and break the 6 feet.
Yeah, because I think it's just, it's strange to think that a faux drill for kids is really when an actual event occurs. We have military people and police training that have to do like live fire, super intense trainings, and even they break down and don't do it. So it's like, there are, I just want to make sure that pros and cons are being, especially if there's any changes to it, that it's really being focused on, because it's,
It is being carefully considered. And even, I have a 4-year-old, a 9-year-old, and an 11-year-old. So the way that I talk about this at home and the way I hear them come back and talk about their experiences with the drills, we're all taking it into account.
And if I could just add one thing, before COVID, the school was gracious enough to allow the sheriff's department and the recruit class from the state police and the state police barracks to come here and train for active shooter, how they would do their procedures and do their drills in an actual school. So though there's some of that knowledge of different places of this building that they already know about, and each barracks has on a dispatcher desktop the diagram of the school building, so they can figure out which rooms are whatever.
And work that some board members are aware of from several years ago when we were talking about updating the phone system, E911, that stuff. You call 911 from a room, they know which room called, and they've got the maps. So we've got some things that have been advances in the last 5 years, which I think are useful, where we don't have to traumatize our students to be safer.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and the other thing is when those police drills are done, there's no
Yeah.
kids in school.
That's break week, yeah.
Can you broadcast on the phones, like if I'm a teacher, can I pick up the phone and make a school-wide?
Yes.
Never, okay.
Yes,
I don't need any
believe
more.
I believe now every phone
Intercom
is
access, yeah.
intercom access. The one hard thing is that obviously if you call and say, I got an active shooter in my room, blah, 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 and you lay the phone down,
Yeah.
that's the only room that has access to it. You can't override that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
we do have, obviously at that point, it's pinpointed, and as Brian said, the 911 knows, it's like coming from this room
Yep.
because it's this phone number, and then we can respond to that.
And actually, this is really interesting. If somebody in Shrewsbury calls 911, all our offices know, because our main stations get an alert. So we've been in the office here where it's been not a crisis situation, but there was a reason to call 911. And we go, Joe, what do you know? Because we'll know down here instantly before anybody at Shrewsbury even tells us, if that makes sense. So we do have some nice ways of being in the loop fast.
Yeah, the communication
we
piece
never had,
is
yeah.
huge
Yeah.
amongst the adults. I mean,
Yeah.
people tend to forget that.
So first, obviously, the compliment to both of you. It's fantastic. Compliment to both of you. It's hard work, due diligence. If I rewind a couple of board meetings, some of us were questioning, have we thought about an outside assessment on everything that it is you're looking at and doing and that kind of stuff? And then part two, when we go on tour for, hey, looking at Clarendon and looking at Mill River and looking at, is it possible, obviously you don't want to share everything because it ends up being broadcast everywhere.
Correct.
Can we look at little pieces of, hey, there's this and we do this and we do this, kind of like you're doing with your teachers?
Probably when we do the assessment of each one, if there's, I mean, obviously you're gonna have the things that need immediate attention. Some that it's kind of like, okay, when you get time, we can do this, or there's future things. We'll definitely bring that back to board and let you guys know what it is and what needs attention. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the assessment that you did does take in effect perimeters and outside security, kind of like, you have hedgerows, you have.
How many doors?
Yeah, how many doors, how many, because because some of the doors, there's no access to, I mean, you can push them out, get out, but, there's no key or key lock or anything like that on them. So you have to mark those, and it's, again, there is an outside access.
The EOPs are really complete. If you guys ever wanted to see those in executive session, because it has all of the things that we do.
I know that's
more
the
than
one
happy.
thing we were bouncing off the wall a couple of meetings ago was, well, how often does the door get propped because a class goes out to walk around? Or how
Right.
often does it get open because they're loading groceries? Or
Right.
everyone has to come through the front, but not every door is sealed for
And part
the
of doing that
entire day.
assessment work is doing these
Yeah.
meetings. You also asked about outside assessment, so there is, Rob Evans does do that. We have looked into that. You know, if the board is interested in pursuing that, that's something that we could look at. One of our current
I wonder if get a cost and an estimate might be a good
Yeah.
first thought.
Yeah,
Yeah, because that would be an
They're not free.
unbudgeted thing.
They're not.
Oh, yeah, sure,
They're not.
sure.
Right.
Yep.
Oh, I should also add, all of our administrators are going to a threat assessment training that's offered free through the state. Sometime it's offered
2 weeks from now.
2 weeks from now, and then again in September, and so everyone signed up for that. So,
Fantastic.
because we have a lot of new folks, and it doesn't hurt to take the training again either.
Everyone all set? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And so now we will move on to curriculum.
Are you sick of hearing my voice?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
This is just meant to be a quick update going into the school year on what our focus is going to be for this school year. So as you already heard, opening day is coming up really, really soon. And that's going to be a lot of just nuts and bolts trainings. The next day we move on to curriculum. I'm bringing a purchase in front of you tonight for the Eureka Squared math program for K through 8. Whenever we spend money on a new curriculum, we want to make sure that we're supporting teachers with that. So we are planning on an outside trainer for our teachers at the elementary through 8th grade level for that on that curriculum day. And some really long, good work time for the high school teachers to work in their departments on that day. Overall, our focus for this year is on coordinating curriculum. So we had a couple years of getting proficiency-based learning really up and running, and then went into COVID, when curriculum really went to an interesting place where teachers were scrambling to figure out what they could teach remotely. And then teachers were scrambling when we came back to try to meet increased differentiation for kids. Right now, we're at a place in a district where we really need to focus on making sure that teachers have sustained time to work together to figure out what we are teaching as a district at each level, to make sure that we have rigor, that we have differentiation, and that we have everything that our kids need. So that if a kid does go from Tynmouth to Willingford in the 2nd grade, they're going to have the same experiences. And if they never change schools, so that when they get to the 7th grade, they have the same base, not content and experiences. So coordinated curriculum really is our focus this year. For PLCs, that's professional learning communities. That's when teachers get time to work in small groups to really dive into something. This year, the elementary schools are going to work on early literacy practices. Because of COVID, a lot of our cohorts really missed some key time with teachers, and so we're finding our literacy levels have been impacted. I mean, that's a nationwide thing, but these kids are our kids, and we want to help, and so we're going to focus on the science of reading. So things that researchers have been able to prove can really make an impact on kids at the elementary level. The secondary level is going to focus their PLCs this year on advisory, because we're seeing increased social emotional needs at that secondary level, and we understand that we can't expect teachers to work miracles without support. We really want to spend this time giving them the tools and the time to discuss the problems together, to focus on how to better connect with students and build those relationships. What else are we doing? The leadership team, our focus this year is going to be on supervision evaluation. So we use a rubric called the Danielson rubric to do our evaluation, but we decided collectively that we want to get better at using that to support teachers and have meaningful conversations and feedback, and so we're doing a series of learning together on that this year. And we did bring somebody from Danielson to work with us last year. A piece of that will be bringing somebody back this year.
We partnered with the union to
Yes.
do some of that work, which I think is important, because if we have a common goal, which we do, and we focus on that common goal, we do better work together.
Absolutely. Very proud of the work that the ELNIC group is doing. This is a group of early primary school teachers working with other cohorts throughout the state on doing this early literacy work, building artifacts, coming back to share them. And that's a voluntary thing that some of our teachers are doing just because they want to get better and better. And they've had amazing impact already. Our literacy work group is going to continue to work on updating our literacy plan because during COVID that just wasn't updated for a little while. What else? Release days this year. That's when the kiddos go home at the half day or go to aftercare and our teachers are all together. So the focus this year for elementary is going to be coordinated curriculum specifically. This year we're going to look at science. So we're purchasing a science curriculum at the elementary school district-wide and giving teachers some time to decide what subjects do they want to integrate at each grade level so that we don't have, say, like 3 different grade levels doing butterflies, but no one ever gets to the planets. So aligning that horizontally and vertically, and really diving into looking at assessment at the secondary level. And the last thing that I just wanted to mention, I actually brought a sample in case you're wondering. That literacy work group and some other teachers who worked over the summer with Deborah Gardner-Bosch have created a live document to put together all of the curricular resources we have at every single grade level. And the teachers will be working to edit and make sure that this is live and running throughout this year. Because we knew that when folks came into the school district as new teachers or as transfers, we wanted to be able to give them all of the information about what we hope that they will teach at any given year, as clearly as possible. And so the first 2 pages are just, so this is a live document. Just send me an email if you want to actually look through the entire thing. I just didn't want to print out 50 pages for you. It's kindergarten through 6th grade of our curriculum maps, our scoring criteria, all of the important literacy pacing documents, and then I just printed out one example for you of what something would look like. So this is the Essential Phonics Skills by Trimester for grade 2. So it's a curricular plan. So if I'm teaching 2nd grade at Mill River, I know that all of the other 2nd grade teachers are working through in semester 1 these major points of phonics. I am done talking unless you have questions.
I have a question. Did you say ELNIC, and is that an acronym?
It is an acronym.
Okay, what is,
Early Learning Network.
sorry, I have to know the acronym. Early learning.
What are the NICs are something the state likes doing, which are like PLCs.
Yeah.
Network,
It's
integrated
early
community or
literacy
something.
and
Yeah.
then whatever
Is
NIC
it, if it's a state thing, I can Google it.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
And Adrian has her hand up.
You're muted.
You're muted.
Well, I tried to get to the right button, sorry. I was just wondering, it sounds like there's a lot of focus on, obviously on literacy. Are we looking at, or are we planning on maybe making that focus next year on the drop that we see in testing and stuff when we get out of the grade school ages? I mean, it's like at high school and things start to sort of fade away. They get interested in other things and school does not seem to be the focus.
Yeah, so looking at our data horizontally, so where are kids really making gains within a grade level in our district, and vertically of like if we take a cohort of kids, how are they doing? Both of those are really, really important when we decide what to focus on next for curriculum. Because for a teacher, the focus, they have to focus on 50 things a day all the time, right? And so when we're designing professional development for teachers, we don't want to hopscotch everywhere so that it just becomes more overwhelming for them. So we do really want to go deep with one thing at a time. A piece of that work right now to address what you're talking about in our data is really making sure that we give teachers time to work in their grade level teams, but also time to communicate vertically. So for example, when talking about the science coordination of curriculum at the elementary level. I had a great conversation with our middle school science teacher who said, hey, I'd love to be in the room with the upper elementary so we can talk about that bridge. And so, you know, supporting those sort of collaborations, I think, is going to be really helpful there.
And there are some things that it's not in anybody's best interest to talk about, just for an example, because I absolutely love Sabrina McDonough up at Shrewsbury, 5th and 6th grade. So I will use her as an example because she is phenomenal. I'm never going to say in a public meeting, well, you know, we've been looking at 6th grade test scores in Shrewsbury, and that's the work that our principals are doing at their buildings. That's the work Sabrina does. That's why she's so phenomenal, is because she knows how her kids are doing. She's having those conversations with the 3rd, 4th grade teacher that precedes her. She's talking with Jody. She's talking with her principal. So the level of detail we give sometimes is really general. So to say, oh, the middle school, well, we're having those conversations with the middle school, if that makes sense. So it's not that we want to keep anything from you, but I think for respect to the work that individuals are doing, we trust them to be doing the work and looking at the data because they're professionals. And we don't want to create a scenario where we're placing judgment on those individuals because of the hard work they're doing, if that makes sense.
So they're looking at that data in PLCs and in faculty meetings and just on their own time because they're dedicated. They're thinking about what they can do in their classroom. They're looking at the school-wide data. They're using the surveys that we give them around curriculum to say what they think will be impactful.
Rather than us telling them, you need to fix this thing in your classroom because this is the thing that's wrong. We need them at the table and we need their input because they're professionals. If we see something wrong, we have the conversation, but we have to meet them halfway to have that conversation. If we want to talk in executive session about test scores that seem overly problematic, I think that's something we've done in the past, and we can absolutely do that. Does that make sense, Adrian? Why Jody didn't give you a very specific answer around the middle school?
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking more in terms of the future, just because
Yeah.
that's what stands out to me. I mean,
Yeah.
I have absolutely no problem with the focus that it's
Yeah.
definitely needed, and it's like, where do we get first?
Looking at that middle school transition has been something we've probably been doing for about 5 years, actually, believe it or not. And there have been interesting shifts that have happened there in those 5 years.
And there are pieces,
Yeah.
like having the Eureka Squared training for K-8 all in the same room.
Yep.
That's gonna help with that coordination.
Yeah, to
I
pull
would
the middle
also
school
just
in.
make the point that early literacy is truly key. Sometimes when we see student test scores drop in later grades, that can be because of lacking literacy skills. Often it is, right? So the stronger a base we give kids, because it's what we call like learning to read and then reading to learn, is this shift in upper elementary. So in early elementary, you're learning to read, you're learning the basics. And then all of a sudden there's this shift over where literacy becomes the basis by which you're learning all of this content that you're being assessed on. And if you have drops in your skills, so there are kids in our district that have great fluency, meaning they can read aloud and they sound wonderful, but then they might not have the comprehension piece, like they might not remember what they're reading. And so we want to make sure that we're looking, and our early literacy folks are looking at this and are talking to their colleagues about how to better make sure that if we really get that base right, it should help everything going on.
And that's that idea of, is it a lagging indicator? You know, when we look at SBAC scores, is that really actually telling you how the first, second, third, fourth grade teachers did by the time they're in 6th grade? Because it's not the 6th grade teacher that teaches them how to read. So sometimes we are seeing those scores look bad down the road. It's really hard to identify, oh, it's this one thing or this one person or the one curriculum choice. We've got to look far more comprehensively, especially when it's a lagging indicator. If it's a test we gave in the fall and a test we gave in the spring and we can see the student making growth, then we're far more closer to figuring out what we can do better. That's the work we have our folks doing. They give the STAR assessments in the fall, the winter, the spring, and they're looking at, hey, did that thing we try actually make sense? And we're going to be talking, I think, next board meeting. Andrea, Matt, and I sat down and looked at a schedule for a year's worth of board meetings. How does data play into that schedule, and how do we get our buildings working in data and bringing that so that, again, I'm not the only person talking about data. Jody's not the second person talking about data and that's it. That you're hearing from buildings and teachers, and they're showing you the good work that they're doing, because they are doing the good work. So,
Thank you.
Jody, thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone want to know what that acronym was?
Sure.
Okay, it's Early Learning Networked Improvement Community. Or maybe it's network.
Networked Improvement Community sounds right.
There were yeah.
It's a little awkward
Early
why
Learning
they
Network
could.
Improvement Community.
I wonder if Professional Learning Community PLC is trademarked, so the state couldn't do that.
For sure.
I wonder.
All right, so next we are going on to curriculum purchasing.
Guess who again? All right, so just speaking of that math program that we'd like permission to go ahead and purchase, so that is for Eureka Squared. Eureka is the math program that we've been using for many years at Mill River. There is a new program that we met with the representative last year with some of the people I consider our district's strongest math professionals, who were very impressed by this program. It provides some Tier 2 and Tier 3 online instruction for students. It provides color workbooks, because right now teachers are copying from online, and sometimes that just makes a difference.
Sure.
At the upper grades, it provides color workbooks for homework to take home. The lessons are really highly engaging. For years, we've been doing the Eureka curriculum, and then we've been trying to integrate what's called the All Learners Network ideas of these fundamental math concepts. But the second version of the program integrates both, so we don't have to try to push two things together anymore. And any teacher that I've asked to look at it has been like, yes, we want this. So the bid is for $29,201.22. I want to just point out a mistake I made on the paperwork. For the second bid comparison, I wrote down the wrong number. I wrote down $109,896.39, but the actual cost was $201,880.35. And that's, the second quote is in the packet that you guys got. I just wrote it wrong on the cover sheet. So at $30,000 versus $200,000, and $30,000 being the one that we are already using, I just want to say that I really hope that we can purchase this for teachers, and that it's coming out of our ESSER, our COVID funds.
And the cost to maintain this would be far lower.
Yes.
Part of this is the initial training Jody was talking about on those opening days, so that's why you're seeing a higher number.
And teachers edition, if it really works, we want to buy the workbooks over and over again, but a lot of the initial cost, it will be significantly less the second year.
Okay, does somebody want to make a motion?
I'm looking for the numbers.
So Adrian for a motion?
I'll second it.
Yeah, go ahead, Liz.
No, are you making the motion? I'll second it.
Do you want the numbers?
Yeah, because I can't find it in the packet. Thank you.
It's right there.
It was 29,201.22. Okay. Do you want to make the motion? I'll second it. Thank you.
Nope, you got the numbers in front
Yes,
of you.
okay, yes, so, I'd like to make the motion to approve the purchase of the Eureka Squared program for $29,201.22, and we're using ESSER funds. Yeah.
I move that.
And Adrian, do you have a second?
I am, thank you.
All in favor, any discussion? No discussion? All in favor? That looks unanimous. So, congratulations.
Thank you, thank you.
Is Stan still listening?
Because next would be the fuel bid.
I think he's in his office.
He is.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, here he comes. He's walking through.
He was listening.
Hey, everybody.
Hi, Stan.
First is the fuel bid.
Yes.
As you said, back in June, I brought you the propane bid, and fuel at that time was around $4.35 a gallon, so we decided to wait a while. Me and Gary decided to wait till this board meeting in August, because we saw there's a trend of prices going down. So we did send out bids for today, and we received 2 bids from Champlain Valley was one, which is our current supplier, and Irving Oil was the other one. Champlain Valley bid was $3.70 a gallon. and
$3.70?
$3.70. And Irving Oil was $3.877 a gallon. So Champlain Valley is, considerably lower. So I guess, the question is now, do we accept it, or do we want to, wait and play a little game?
Take a gamble, yeah.
Take a gamble. What this does to our budget, if we were to accept the $3.70, it would give us a fuel oil deficit of $30,000 by accepting the $3.70. The propane price, which we got a good price on, is giving us a savings around $27,000. So there's only a
Wow.
$3,000 gap there that we would pick up to cover that deficit in the budget.
Could be a lot worse.
I mean, and me and Gary had talked about that.
Yeah.
We have a capital maintenance account for the district, right, that has a budget of $60,000, and we would propose taking that difference to cover, the budget deficit of $3,000 if the board chooses to go ahead and accept the bid from Champlain.
I'm gonna make the motion so that we can have a discussion. I would move that we accept the fuel bid from Champlain, is it Valley?
Champlain Valley Fuels.
Champlain Valley Fuels for $3.70 a gallon. And I'm making this motion so that we can discuss it.
We have a second?
Sure.
All right, Len's second, so, discussion.
Okay, folks, $3.70.
How do we pay for it? Is it as used or,
Yeah, as used.
okay, so you don't have to pay up front?
No.
Okay.
Do we have to buy it? Do we have to buy a minimum?
Yeah, we, based on past history, we put in a bid with usage, estimate of 19,000 gallons.
Adrian has her hand up.
Yeah, is there any penalty in the bid if we don't use up all the oil? I mean, if we go on an oil austerity plan? Significant sweatshirts and sweaters, well,
Yeah, like at home.
Yep,
exactly.
yep.
Champlain does not have a penalty. Irving usually does.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I don't know if they put it in their proposal. Theirs is 30 cents
On the gallon?
on the gallon.
My question is if the price of fuel oil were to dip below $3.70, would they honor the lower price?
In past Champlain, they're the only company that will. They have, like this year, we started out well, our price was, I think, $2.35, but then we were getting the market price, which was lower at the time. They've done it in the past. I've talked to him, and he says due to the volatility, he can't guarantee that this year because of the volatility.
Of course.
How often can we requote?
What was that again?
How often can we requote? Every day,
It
every
depends.
week, every month?
You can do it as much as you want if they're willing to put make an offer, I guess, or put on the request.
Before we go to Bruce, sorry to interrupt you, so from June 8th, it's dropped $23 a barrel. So the trend is down.
Bruce?
I just want, I'm having a hard time hearing here, but I would like to know from Stan, which one you think is the better deal?
I'm not a gambler, since it meets, we can cover it in our budget. I would go with the Champlain price, but then again, you know, and I don't have a crystal ball. I've asked that of other people in the business, they don't have a crystal ball. All it takes is one, you know, catastrophic event in the world, and that could shoot the prices up. That's the chance you take.
Stan, so my other question is do we typically buy this time of year? Is this usually when
Usually we do earlier.
Okay.
Usually it's, you know, we could do end of May, beginning of June, somewhere around there. We try to lock in.
Could you reiterate for the board, that we would be paying over, but we're paying under, so like the gap is only $3,000 to $27,000? Could you
Right
repeat
now,
that?
right, $30,000 loss on the fuel pricing right now.
Based on what we budgeted?
27,000 savings with the propane bid.
Okay.
Anyone else have any questions?
Are we budget, so the budget that is right now is based on what the fuel price was basically last year? Or is it, because like, that was in very low, like it was like lower than it should be normally. So in line, like, if you look back 5 years, you know, how different is the price now versus, you know, like pre-COVID prices?
COVID for fuel, it's been anywhere from,
Yeah.
in the last 5 years, it's been anywhere from, we've gotten contracts for $1.80 a gallon up to
Yeah.
$2.60,
Yeah. It doesn't seem like, I mean, it could go down that low, but it doesn't seem like it's gonna go back down. Like, so it's like, how much, by waiting, how much savings are we actually going to get in the accumulative? Like, if it was gonna go down $1,
Yeah.
then that's a risk, that's a gamble that's worth it. But it's like,
And
if
I
it goes down
wonder-
20 cents.
I wonder, if we get some savings, great, how much of a benefit is that for us with a budget?
Well,
Savings are always nice, but if we go over budget, is the penalty going over budget worse than the benefit we get from the savings? Does that make sense? Like, is it a gamble that's not worth it?
Right now, we're looking at potentially breaking even essentially with the savings.
Yeah, so why look a gift horse in
Yeah.
the mouth?
But if, you know, if you say it goes down 30 cents, you know, it's 19,000 gallons at 30 cents, which is,
Yep.
you know, $5,700.
That was good.
Yeah.
That was good.
And would that be nice to have near the end of budget season? Sure, but is it worth the gamble?
Are we ready to vote?
Yes, say, anyone have any other questions?
19 gallons times 30 cents.
Well, we do have a motion on the floor to accept the bid from Champlain Valley Fuel, $3.70 a gallon. Should we do roll call, or should we just do all in favor?
Give it a shot. No pressure.
So we're gonna have to roll call it then.
Okay.
We'll start with Bruce. Yay or nay?
Yes.
Adrian,
Yes.
Josh,
Yes?
Paul,
Yes.
Len,
Yep.
Doug,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Nick,
Nay.
and I will say yay, so we have one nay.
Thank you, Stan.
Thank you. And so next we will move on to adult meal pricing.
So even though we will have free meals for students this year, we still have to charge the adults for the breakfast and lunch meals provided at all the schools. What the state requires us to do for pricing is that we have to exceed the reimbursement rate that covers the student meals. And that rate for this upcoming year is $4.84. I did involve our food service management company, Lexington Independence, to get their input as to what they felt comfortable charging the adults. They came back with a proposal of keeping the breakfast rate at $2.50, which is the same as the previous year. And the lunch rate, to set that at $4.90, compared to the $4.75 that we had this past year. The breakfast rate at $2.50 is fine, it meets all the requirements. If we were to leave it at $2.50, and obviously the $4.90 exceeds the $4.84 that we're required to meet. I would ask the board to make a motion to adopt the breakfast price of $2.50 and the lunch price of $4.90 for adult meals.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that. Thanks, Nick.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous. Now, this is when we added
Exactly right. Bank resolution.
bank resolution.
Due to the changeover we've had in administrators for this upcoming year at our schools, each school has a petty cash account of $500, and the principals have, check authority signing and sign the checks. It helps pay for postage or any other incidentals that, instead of waiting for a board meeting to approve these small expenses for office expenses. So I requested to get signature cards, updates from the bank, and of course, they make things complicated and want a board resolution to do this.
Oh.
So I'm asking the board to do an authorization resolution to authorize, and I'll list out the names for each school. For the Mill River High School, it would be Denise Patch, our district treasurer, Kaylin Thompson, our school principal, and Karen Stannard, the assistant principal. Shrewsbury Mountain School, Denise Patch, the district treasurer, Kristen Simonetti, the principal. Clarendon Elementary School, Denise Patch, the district treasurer, Jane Richards, the principal. Wallingford Elementary School, Denise Patch, the district treasurer, and Daniel Betts, the principal. And even though we did not change administration at Timoth, they still want Timoth added. So we have Denise Patch, the district treasurer, and Maureen Fitzgerald Riker, the principal at Timoth. I would ask the board to adopt this authorization resolution.
So moved.
Second. Josh? Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
So now we're going to be moving on to committee reports, and we will start with personnel. Len, that's your division.
Yes, it is. So, we met tonight and we have some contracts to bring before the board for approval. The first one is a law enforcement contract, with the Rutland County Sheriff's Office for 1 year SRO for Joe Hoffman. And I would make that a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion. All those in favor? Okay, that's good. The next contract is for educational support staff, 1.0 full-time equivalency for Lisa Barrett. And I'll take a motion for that.
Make that motion.
Thank you. Liz? Thank you. Josh? Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Thank you very much. Next, an educational support staff contract, 1.0 FTE for Anthony Kange.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Liz, you're on a roll. We're all on a roll. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Bingo bongo. Here we go. Next one, educational support staff, 1.0 full-time equivalency for Daniel Forty.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Thank you. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained?
Well, I should have thrown this in during discussion, but it's nice to see the last two adopted were Mill River graduates.
Yeah.
So that's a nice trend we've seen lately.
That's true. And that's been true in some previous hires as well.
Absolutely.
Next is teacher, elementary K-6 classroom 1.0 full-time equivalency for Alice Coates Martin. And that's at Wallingford, Brian?
Wallingford, first grade. Yep.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Liz.
I'll second it.
There we go. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Thank you. And then last is, let's see, a change in status, a contract.
Did
for
you get
change.
Patty Ingles? Was I sleeping during Ingles? I'm
I
sorry.
didn't hear that one.
Where
I
did you
could have
go?
been.
Just hiding
Make a motion for 1.0 full-time equivalency for,
Patty Ingles,
Patty Ingles. for
para-educator,
special
one-year contract.
educator.
Sorry,
Sorry about that.
para-educator.
Para-educator, okay.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you,
Second.
thank you. Although, discussion, all those in favor, opposed, abstained? Thanks, nice catch, Brian.
Sometimes I get them.
Okay, so let me try this one again. This is for a change in status for Jody Stewart Ruck. To change her title from Director of Curriculum to Assistant Superintendent.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Liz?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion.
If I could add a little context, you know, we've been talking a lot about trying to hire the right way and to take our time and to have an open process. When I was named assistant superintendent, it came to the board day of, and I feel like it was a bit of a rush and there was no context given. So I gave some context to Personnel Committee. I think it's fair to give that context to the public. We have been working to clarify roles, responsibilities in the district, and that's work that the board has asked for and we've committed to. We've also tried to map out our organizational chart so it's clear who reports to whom and who is actually responsible for which duties. The duties that have fallen under the title Assistant Superintendent have been carried out in the district since 2015. That's work that's been ongoing, and we worked internally over the last couple of months as we were clarifying roles, responsibilities to figure out who is the best person for that job. We did speak with other central office administrators, and we worked together to figure out who the best person for that job was, and it's absolutely Jody. This is a change in title. That's all it is. It represents lining up the title with the job description. It's not adding administration, it's not adding time or dollars. It's a change in title to better reflect the work that's being done, if that makes sense. I think it would have been a rush to name an interim superintendent way back when to name an interim assistant superintendent when I was named interim. We didn't know where things were gonna go. We had that conversation. I think we've had enough time since then to sort through better clarity for the district, if that makes sense.
Bruce had his hand up first, and then Adrian.
Yep. Go ahead, Bruce, I'm sorry.
Okay. I'm concerned because I know curriculum coordinator is a tough job. And I'm concerned that we're watering down the curriculum coordinator, although she's doing it or would be doing it for no more pay. It's not adding that, it is subtracting time from curriculum development. Now, when Jody applied for the job under Dave, she had no curriculum training as far as degree work goes, and she admitted that. She worked with Andrew. I'm concerned about the scores, and taking her away from that job. It's a tough job. And I'm gonna be watching test scores. I'm gonna be watching what the curriculum's doing. I know faculty members are concerned, and I know they're concerned because they've been pushing for a return of home ec, industrial arts, and those kinds of things that many of our students want in the curriculum. And I think we get a little top-heavy, even though this isn't adding any money. We're adding a lot of administrative positions and maybe even a driver's ed helper that we couldn't get for the last 2 or 3 years. You know, little things like that don't take a lot of money. So those are my concerns.
Yeah. I hear you, Bruce. I'm concerned about curriculum, and I think it's important to note that everything Jody was sharing in her curriculum update is work she's been doing while she's been doing these other duties. So it's not adding something. She's been doing the work, and she's able to do that work. I'm going to be watching the test scores too. I think we have a lot of work to do. We have to support our students to be doing better. So I absolutely agree with that.
Adrian?
I just wanted to speak out in support of Jody in that she has been doing this work without a title and without extra pay, and to reflect in a position title is valuable to her and her career, and I think we should do that.
Any other questions, discussions? Okay, so motion has been made and seconded, so I'll call the question. All those in favor of the
You
changes?
should probably roll call then.
Okay, let's do a roll call then. I'll start with Bruce.
No.
Adrian,
Yes.
are you getting these, Ann? Is that okay? Okay, I'm sorry.
I'll say yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
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 And I'm going to say no. So it was, what was the score?
1,
9
2,
to
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
Yeas?
9, 2.
Yeah, 9 yeas and
Yep.
2 nays.
7 and 2.
6, 7. Yeah, how did I? 7 and 2.
7 and 2. 7
So,
years, 2.
Congratulations, Jody.
Congratulations, Jody.
Oh, anybody abstain? Sorry about that. That would be all that Lenny has.
Can we maybe do one other thing? Authorize Matt to sign contracts tonight since Andrea's sick, so that we can keep contracts moving for.
I would make that motion.
Second.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Discussion, all those in favor, opposed, abstained, there you go.
Thank you, Lynn.
Yep, thank you. Next meeting will be September. Something,
Okay.
there you go, at 6,
Is it the first Wednesday normally?
yes.
All right, so next would normally have been policy, but I was just notified that there's no policy update. So we will move on to buildings and
Meeting next
grounds.
Tuesday.
Yeah, next Tuesday.
Meeting next Tuesday? Okay.
Yep.
So now we'll move on to buildings and grounds.
Nothing for buildings and grounds. My building and ground executive is taking some time. I haven't been able to catch up with him. He will be out the rest of this week. And next week, he's going to be with our incoming building and grounds individual. But one thing I am impressed, and I always have been, is that this place can look kind of rotten. And in 2 days before school starts, if you go in here, you'll never believe how beautiful it looks. And the guys are ready to do it again. They're all set. We talked with Jeremy, and he was actually building himself a part for a torch to work up on. It's like, yeah, stop doing this stuff. But he's doing very good. We will meet as soon as I get Tim back with us doing the job.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you. So next would be community engagement.
That's all, we have a meeting after policy on Tuesday, but we haven't met since.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right, so no update, but a meeting next Tuesday. All right, perfect. So next, we're on to finance. It's you, Liz.
Good evening, everyone. All right, so the full board is now receiving all of the registers for all of the pay orders. So thank you, Paul, for making that request.
And thank you for following through.
Absolutely, of course. So I will start with payroll this evening. For fiscal year '23, we have dated July 29th, regular payroll in the amount of $116,981.60. Dated July 29th, we have payroll in the amount of $73,572. And dated August 1st, we have payroll in the amount of $7,519.77 for a grand total of $198,073.37. And before I move on to pay orders, just if anybody has a question about a line item, because they're codes, right? Feel free to ask Stan, and he will reply to the full board what the answer is. I'm certain it's things that I've asked over the years, Doug's asked over the years, other members of the board have asked over the years, but we'll get you those answers. Okay, so for pay orders, and this is from the fiscal year '22 budget, there is one pay order from the general fund in the amount of $54,238.42. And then from the fiscal year '23 budget from the general fund, there is a pay order in the amount of $330,843.93. From after-school program, a pay order in the amount of $1,526.09. And also from the general fund, a pay order in the amount of $7,478.45. And the grand total for all of those pay orders is $394,086.89. And I do move that we accept and approve payroll and these pay warrants as presented.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Thank you, Josh. Any discussion? Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Bruce, how are you?
He's good.
Hand up, thank you. All right, thank you, everybody. So the next meeting of the Finance Committee will be Monday, August 22nd. We are meeting at 5 o'clock here, unless my committee members tell me that that date and time needs to change.
Well, that's my birthday.
Is it? Okay.
And my wife has taken me out of the country.
Where are you going?
Cozumel.
No. What's your wife's name?
Maria.
Thank you, Maria.
My
So
new
nice.
location.
I will be absent.
No,
I'm
but
sure
he's
you
going
can
to
be excused from the
Cozumel.
meeting. I'm sure that can be arranged.
I'm happy
Heard a
for
new
Paul.
location for the meeting.
Oh, great
that's true.
idea.
Yeah, well, check it.
But that is unbudgeted. You'll have to get there by yourselves.
To be clear, you have to pay for it yourselves. Well, Paul, happy birthday, and we'll fill you in.
Okay.
And before I cede the mic, I'm going to share out before the next full meeting of the board, assuming I find it. There is a budget process timeline that we have put together so that folks know how this works, because it comes up quickly. Usually we start in earnest in about October, but given the plan to kind of present to the public various budgets, you know, if we do this, this is what it would look like, et cetera, I think we'll probably start a little earlier.
Absolutely.
So I'll be sharing that out. And that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Liz. Thank you. So next we move on to transact other legal business. Anybody have anything? Going once, going twice. All right. Agenda building, summer meeting schedule.
Yes, absolutely. Or you mean, yeah,
It
the
says
yearly.
agenda building, this is in parentheses, summer meeting schedule, so.
Oh, oops, typo. That was a holdover from when we met and we discussed, are we going to meet every board meeting? So ignore that.
Okay.
Sorry, that's
No
probably
problem.
my fault.
I'm just reading line by line.
Yep. So we have been talking, and we had set guidance and mental health updates for the 17th meeting. Coral had also said she might need time for contract for speech language pathology services. She will need that time. And then we are planning our strategic planning at 6 a.m. What's that? No way, 6 p.m.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry. Wow. Yeah. I'll be here. Maybe nobody else will be. So 6 a.m. strategic, again, 6 p.m. strategic planning. I think guidance, mental health, and having Coral's update will put a fairly full meeting. Are there other things that you'd like? Do you want like a 5 minutes from principals because we're getting ready to kick off the year? Is that worth squeezing in?
I think so.
Okay. So principal updates added to that list?
At some point as well, during agenda building, can we maybe have the new elementary athletic director come and give us kind of
Yep.
an idea of
Yep.
moving the position forward?
I mentioned that to Kim, and she said she was going to talk to Brittany.
Okay.
I think we should work that in sometime in maybe September.
September, October, you know.
And then I wonder if we had talked about bringing the year-long board meeting schedule.
Okay.
So maybe bring that to the 17th to share that with the board. I don't think we'd look for action on that. It would just be sharing it.
Okay.
Because I think the idea is we always have action for agenda building. We build the agenda together by consensus so that we'd have a schedule mapped out, but we don't necessarily have to stick to the schedule. We would still do agenda building and try to follow our schedule, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Bruce and Adrian, agenda building items?
Go ahead, Bruce, you were first.
I would like to have an update on the Willingford Elementary School kitchen potable water situation. I didn't bump into it. He was checking out the camp kitchen, and he brought it up that while Gary replaced or had water in the kitchen that's potable, that they could fill the barrels, the pots, that it's done illegally. They can't use the hand washing station to do that. So we still need to replace the faucets and the 3 base sinks.
Okay, I will talk to Gary and we'll get an update on that so we have all that information. Adrian, did you have something?
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to know if you could build into the schedule. We talked about having, not necessarily department heads, but each department, at least at Mill River.
That's on
And
the
maybe-
schedule.
And maybe the grade representatives for the elementary schools.
What we had,
Put that into the schedule.
yeah, and I think we can have some discussion at the next meeting around it. We're just not gonna have action and approve it 100%. So, yeah, we'll look at that. We do have like K3 and 4-6 from each school planned, and then department plans. We can talk about that and see if there's a better way to do it too. That's
I
good.
didn't want to forget it.
Yeah,
before-
no, good thinking. Good thinking. Okay, I think that's a packed agenda.
Okay. Executive session, if necessary. Do we have anything to do in executive? Okay. So can I get a,
Actually, can I say one thing? I should have done this during other legal business. I really appreciate that when we're getting to items on the agenda, we're having discussion on probably more than we have in the past. And I think it's good to see that folks are engaging with the materials and sharing their opinions. When we share that together in public and we still make decisions and follow those decisions, I think it makes us stronger as a board instead of just, oh, sounds good, yep, done, and flying through the agenda. So I appreciate folks being willing to share how they're really thinking about things.
thank you.
Yep.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor? Or just, there we go. All right, we're all set.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.